The lack of diversity that we have in teaching is unfortunate.
In a neighborhood that lacked wealth, and henceforth a school system that lacked wealth.
My mom found her way into a Yonkers public school, and I did 7th and 8th grade in Yonkers. Illegally. I just showed up to school knowing that I was a liar.
Schools in New York City are segregated.
So, 7th and 8th grade, my mom lied about our address, and I was able to go to a special school where I was told at the time that it was in its second year of forced desegregation. I was definitely afraid to go to school with a bunch of white folks that I knew didn't want us there.
The students' plan addresses what they call the 5 R's.
But it was the most amazing experience, and I learned a lot about what it means to go to a school where you have choice.
Black and Latino kids that are ready to take on the challenge to excel at any level.
For a desegregation program that buses inner city kids, black and brown, out to suburban schools, rich and white.
I had the same ambitions as any student with an 89 average and 100% attendance. It's just I wasn't given the opportunity to succeed in that institution.
I go to a school in the Bronx. There's not that many resources as some schools that have higher pay or higher resources than in Manhattan or in Brooklyn. Like, there's different schools with different resources.
But not all New York City public schools are created equal.
No, they're not.
An hour-long bus ride to a faraway place to get a better education.
And then I ended up in this lovely school, 9th grade, John F. Kennedy, which was supposed to be one of the better schools in the Bronx. By the time I was there, it was already overcrowded. And the stuff that I was learning, I say it all the time, the stuff I was learning in 9th grade, I had already learned in 7th. And so very easily, I ended up in honors classes and can't tell you a damn thing about what I learned. I laughed at that.
We interviewed students of color in college who gave answers for questions about their experiences in high school. We wanted to see and hear stories from perspectives that usually don't get heard most of the time.
I'm Zavia.
I'm Jess.
Katia Palacio.
I'm Hannah Troy.
Vincent.
My name is Saya. I'm from Newburgh and I went to NFA Maine.
I went to high school back in San Francisco at Galileo High School.
I'm from Newburgh, New York. I went to Newburgh Free Academy, North Campus.
I went to University City like all my life. Clearview Regional High School in Mullica Hill, New Jersey.
And Vince, how would you describe the conditions of the schools that you've attended throughout your life?
They were pretty nice, you know, coming from Silicon Valley, it was surrounded by computer science.
I'd say that the conditions of the schools that I've attended throughout my life have been fairly good because they supplied us with materials such as laptops, books, and other things like pencils or paper and notebooks if we needed them.
For North Campus, it was a smaller building, and I'd be walking through the hallways and there would be missing ceiling tiles.
They were pretty good, like I can't complain. Like we had a lot of opportunities. We had a program for like ENTs and like, people were able to graduate with like computer science degrees like from high school. So I'm very thankful for that. But like the conditions for the most part, it was like difficult because it's a black school and like in Missouri, it's like there are a lot of laws that want like curriculum to be very whitewashed.
A lot of mold.
Yeah, we had a bed bug situation a few times.
An elementary school / middle school where it was like mostly white, Hispanic. It was very bare bones. Like the dance program, I kind of had to make that shit up myself. Like everything we kind of had to make ourselves if we wanted it to be like prominent.
We interviewed these students about their hometowns, their diversity in their hometown, and how that impacted them.
Upper middle class, white, rich, conservative.
Where we live, there's a city and a town. I would definitely say the city's more diverse than the town where I live, but regardless, even in the town, it's a lot of diversity.
Yeah, I'd say there was a diverse mix, especially because of the area that I grew up around.
Extremely diverse. It's mostly Hispanic and Black people, not a lot of white people.
And going to a predominantly Black institution, would you say the majority of your teachers were white, or was it more of a diverse mix?
It was like in high school it was more diverse, but in like elementary school and middle school it was like a good chunk white teachers. But like in high school my superintendent changed and she wanted to hire more like people of color.
I grew up in Silver Spring, Maryland, which is a pretty diverse area, although I'd say that there was probably a bit more white American teachers than there were people of color.
Moving to high school, most of my teachers were white. It was only like 5% diverse.
Now that I think about it, I think that majority of my teachers were white.
I had one Black teacher.
Although I've seen a lot of white teachers, it was pretty diverse.
We continued to ask them about their relationships with their teachers and how that fostered for them throughout their entire high school education.
I don't think like, for me, I don't think like race specifically like influenced how I was able to foster the relationships with my teachers, but because I took more challenging classes, I think that like helped me foster better relationships with my teachers.
Not really, but when I did, it was hard because there would be kids that were better at things than me and who were also white, so they had like a bit of an advantage there.
Yeah, for the most part, mostly just like a standard, student-teacher relationship, nothing too outgoing.
Yeah, I feel like I've built a strong community back home, and now I feel like I'm fostering relationships with my professors.
I feel like some of my instructors may have catered to my emotional needs, but those were my Black teachers who knew that as a Black girl, I would have certain hardships or certain challenges, which overall had them appeal to me more, relate to me more, give more leniency.
So I think it was a bit harder for us to develop relationships with the teachers, especially in high school, because there was a large population of students in our high school. But as far as middle school and elementary, I'd say it was probably easier.
Do you feel you're most likely to foster a relationship with a teacher of your same race and ethnicity?
Yes, I do think it would be easier, and I feel that way because you can understand them and they will understand you on another level, making things easier.
Yeah, I definitely feel like I am more likely to foster relationships with a Black teacher or a more diverse teacher just because they could relate to me on a deeper level rather than just classes.
Yeah, I definitely feel a connection when I meet someone that's my race, because they share a lot of the same experiences as I do,
Have your friends and peers ever expressed their issues with the lack of diversity in schools you've attended?
My friends wouldn't because they were white and they didn't really care and they didn't really know any better, but I felt like there was something missing that I didn't learn. And when we would talk about like African American history, or not really Latino history, but like the Mexican and the Aztecs and all that stuff, they would make it very short, the lesson very short.
Yeah, I would say my friends, encountered some racism here and there, whether it's judgment-based, biases within teachers and students, just like teachers maybe thinking students are cheating on tests, when it may, the focus may be shifted from another group of students, just little instances like that, can go a long way making students feel uncomfortable and furthermore discouraged from even coming to school.
None of my peers or myself really complained about diversity in my school.
Oh yeah, like we have had like a lot of protests, and like we've talked to superintendents. Like our board of education, it has like one student as a representative, so we always have like somebody who's speaking for a group of students, and it's like really helpful. But I think it's kind of, I don't know, it's different now because it's like they're trying harder.
Yes, a few of my friends expressed their lack of connection or relating to like a white teacher who just was a bit ignorant about some of the black or diverse topics that they taught us. So that was a prominent issue.
And Xavier, even though you went to a predominantly black institution, what effects do you think a largely white culture have on a school and a classroom?
I think like in high school, the effects that it had was like a lot of white kids were occupying spaces that like black students should have been. And like for a while, white students were like running for student president, or like they were doing things they thought were helping, but they were really just like harming, because like we didn't have the representation that we needed in the spaces that we were occupying. But like here, I think like I see a lot more like white people who are like, I know what I'm talking about because I've read this or I like saw this, and like I think that that kind of like has changed a lot of the way that I think about like whitewashing spaces, because it's like you're taking a story that you don't actually know and you're trying to like reword it into something that makes sense to white people, but that's not your experience, if that makes sense. And I think that that has like really had an effect on the way that I view my education here compared to my education in high school, because it's like I watched students who like occupied those spaces when I should have been, but now I'm watching students tell stories that I know better than they're telling, if that makes sense.
I think being Latino in a school with all like white kids, they kind of just thought that I wouldn't get the best grades and like didn't try, and that wasn't the case, and they kind of were not understanding of things that I had going on at like home and stuff.
Whitewashing, I'm unsure about. I know a lot of the time lots of my teachers would get very political in class and share their own like political beliefs and kind of push that upon students.
I would definitely say whitewashing, you know, although it's super common, it's always there. You know, we learn about European history. That's the centerpiece of our history class, like the whole curriculum. That's all that's focused on. That's the only topic that's ever talked about, is just about European history, which I feel is absurd, actually. I feel like, you know, it should be split into maybe different curriculums. However it should be implemented, I feel as if the black community is not represented.
He was like super for Trump, and he'd tell like the class of like black and Hispanic students, be like, yeah, you know, Trump's gonna get in office basically, and it's gonna help out America. Well, Trump was screaming, oh, you know, all Hispanics, all Mexicans, because there's not anything more than that. They're all illegal and they need to be sent back. There's about 10 Rodriguez's in the class.
And throughout your schooling, do you feel that your race, ethnicity, and culture have been properly represented in your school?
Not at all. Like there are so many black stories and so many like stories of people of color that are just not told, because like nobody wants those stories told. Like I had to find out a lot of like my own history through like reading outside of school and like doing my own research, which I think is kind of like messed up, because a lot of like white kids went to school and they were like getting all of this information about like the stuff that their families or like their ancestors have done, and it's like, hey, we were there too. But I think like that's starting to change because of like stuff like the 1619 project and like other stuff that's like being implemented into schools. So I think it'll be different soon, hopefully.
At my past schools, no, I don't think so. They didn't really focus on like Black History Month, and when they would, it would be like one little section of a wall in the hallway. It wasn't really like anything big.
Our superintendent was Hispanic. I felt pretty represented when it comes to like having Hispanic staff, just not for my main core teachers. They were all like white.
I feel like my race and ethnicity has barely been properly represented. The max that we do see is, you know, white teacher doing a lesson or two during Black History Month, or that same teacher saying Martin Luther King had a dream. It's like they don't really dive deeper on black topics unless it's a black, usually for me, female teacher who decides to be more inclusive.
My school though, majority of the time I'd be walking around and I'd see a lot of posters for specific clubs and everything to kind of represent different cultures.
No, you know, as I mentioned before, we didn't have too much black representation within our faculty, so I would say we weren't represented, and that means we weren't encouraged to share our ideas, you know, to foster, you know, our community at school.
Did you have any like events and like field trips growing up?
Yeah.
So like what types?
We would go to Liberty Bell in Philadelphia. We would read a lot of Declaration of Independence, like that sort of stuff. It was never like ethnic museums or like something with like Latino culture, African American culture. It was always like just generic white culture.
Yeah, so it was mostly just about the culture in our area, so it was a lot more, we would have a curriculum surrounded about Native Americans, for example, being that the last Native American tribes were in my area. So I feel like that was a big focus where I'm from.
It was literally just like a cemetery that they took us to. Other than that, we didn't go to any field trips except for like those 2 Broadway shows. No, the one.
Yeah, in high school I didn't go on any field trips actually. That was mostly middle school.
Yeah.
And when I did go in middle school, it was to water park, like a local one.
Ooh, they took away our field trip to go to Great Wolf Lodge like 3 times. Like we were supposed to go to Great Wolf Lodge, they took that away. And then we were supposed to go to Splashdown, they took that away. And then Storm King, and they took that shit away. Like they took every single one away, like our 8th grade year.
Yeah, we had like a lot of field trips that took into account students. Like we went to the Jewish museum, like when we learned a lot about like Jewish history, and we learned a lot about like Black history through other museums and stuff. It was like, I'm very thankful for those experiences, but I feel like schools don't really foster like Black education or like anti-racism education as much as they do like whitewashed education, because we're like so used to that. So I think it's a little harder to like implement field trips that are like specifically for like people of color when our history and like our school history has been like so whitewashed, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
We then gave time for some of our interviewees to share either experiences they faced or other POC students regarding racist comments and actions from the white faculty and staff at their schools.
And I've definitely heard racist comments from the white teachers. Like there's this one guy who wouldn't stop talking about how the Muslim student was gonna blow up the school, and that was like the wood club teacher. That was like weave braid.
Yeah, there was a loose braid on the floor, and one of the teachers took a picture of it and posted it onto their Facebook with their other
teacher
colleagues and everything, and was basically making fun of it. I'm pretty sure there was repercussions for that.
PS 692 Hard Schools, Hard Times isn't just about fights and drama that can unfold between a group of people. This is about people that have been treated unfairly at school just based on their race/ethnicity. Many kids have been ridiculed by society because of what they look like and have received unfair treatment by school officials because of their race. From different interviews, a single scene, and other facts, we have learned of and seen the effects of working under a facade where kids get hurt more than we know it.